Hey, yo, what's the deal? That's your boy Tag from Pro Wrestling Tag, you know what I mean? As of this recording, it is 11:17 p.m., September 24th, 2025. You know what I mean? And actually, the upload time, you know what? I'll put this for tomorrow morning. It's kind of raining here in New York. It's not really going on. Right now I'm just getting my list for some food to buy for tomorrow. You know what I mean? When I do my usual, grocery shopping and such, So I'm just chilling. Chilling. So last night's Dynamite, right, which had passed tonight, right? Again, definitely not surprised by how much of a lackluster show it's become, because AEW sucks. You suck. You know what I mean? You fucking suck. They presented tag team championships, for the women on AEW television. Nobody gives a fuck. You know what I mean? Orange Cassidy came back. Nobody gives a fuck. You know what I'm saying? But I've noticed something, right? AEW was in Pittsburgh, correct? They was in Pittsburgh. Shout out to Pittsburgh. What thing I realized about Pittsburgh? I realized that, almost every major sports team, right, wears black and yellow. You notice that? You notice the Pittsburgh Penguins, black and yellow, right? The Pittsburgh Pirates, black and yellow. The Pittsburgh Steelers, black and yellow. I noticed that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if that's by design but shout out to Pittsburgh. Every time I think of Pittsburgh, I think of, like toughness, and I forget that Pittsburgh is in Pennsylvania, right? Pittsburgh is a big city, right? Let me sip some water. Hold on. And Pittsburgh is the home of Kurt Angle, right? But you know who else is the home of as well? One Britt Baker. And you would think that AEW at least, because we heard about the reports that that she was on her way back to AEW television, right? That they have some sort of creative for her, right, on the way back. And I initially thought that, AEW was going to bring, and I even made a video stating that AEW was going to bring back Britt Baker, to job to Mercedes, right? But no Britt Baker. No Britt Baker on tonight's Dynamite at all. There's nothing there, which definitely leads me to believe now more than ever before that Britt Baker is done with All Elite Wrestling. She is never coming back to AEW ever the fuck again. You know what I'm saying? Like, that she is WWE bound. Trust me on this one. Because if that was the case, what happened to the creative that Tony Khan promised to Britt? What happened? There was none. There basically was none. Like I said, Britt Baker is unfortunately tied up, on a deal right now with AEW, and I'm pretty sure that she's doing everything in her power to get released out of her contract, right? So the fact that she did not show up on Dynamite this past Wednesday, like I said, it lets me know that she's done, finito, finish, gone, sayonara. Sayonara. She's done. She's done with AEW. She's done. There's nothing, I think the relationship between her and Tony Khan definitely hit a rocky path that we will not know until later on. I don't know what happened. Mind you, like, she's basically one of the pillars of AEW. And for her not to even, for AEW not to even bring her back in her hometown. That says a lot, B. That says a lot. That says a whole lot about what AEW really thinks of her now in 2025 and, what the future holds for Britt Baker. Like I said, she's done. You are never, how the fuck are you going to bring her back? If you wanted to really redeem Britt Baker, of whatever bullshit that you and Tony Khan and her has, right? Whatever drama that might be folded with those two, tonight would have been the best night. You know what I mean? Tonight would have been the night that she goes in, right, and challenges Chris Statlander to, an AEW Women's Championship match. Not even that. Not even fucking that. Wow. That's some nasty work from AEW, and specifically Tony Khan. That is some real fuck ass work, Tony. I mean, that's some real bitch ass work. And again, this is where the best wrestle, right? This is, like the old WCW bullshit. This is where the best wrestle, right? Fuck out of here, nigga. You kidding me? You kidding me? You can't even bring back one of your faves. Like, you serious? And I'll say this, and I'm gonna get that other dude pissed off. What I'm about to say. Britt Baker looks way better than Liv Morgan. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I know the dude's gonna get mad. Oh, how you gonna say that about Liv Morgan? Get the fuck up, nigga. But like I said, they could have done something with Britt Baker, creatively. They could have got, they could have at least, have a spark in the women's division, because that women's division is dead. It is dead. You know what I mean? Mercedes destroyed every fucking thing. You know what I mean? She destroyed everything, and there's nothing you can do there. There's nothing you can do. But the fact that you couldn't even give Britt Baker a ring to come back, to challenge Chris Statlander for the women's championship, right? After you promised that there was creative, that you said you was going to bring Britt Baker back, right? Probably Britt thought about it, and she was like, fuck this, I'm not coming back. Like, you want me to job to fucking Mercedes? For what? You want me to come back just to job to Mercedes and do the same shit that you wanted, to do with Penta? When he was under AEW contract, the exact same shit. She's like, fuck you. I put my fucking drill in your teeth and fuck your whole choppers up. You know what I mean? That's basically what I think more than likely happened. Like I said, Britt Baker is never coming back to AEW. I hate to break it down to you guys, but she is done. Tonight basically indicated that she is finito. She's done. She's done. You know what I mean? Anyway, guys, I'm about to be out. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to definitely holler at y'all. You know what I mean? This video, you know what? Fuck it. This video will definitely go up, around the 11 o'clock. The 11 a.m. hours. It's already past 11 a.m. You know what I mean? It's probably like 8, 11:08, about to hit 11:09 and such. You know what I mean? But I'm going to holler at y'all. Peace.